Karen, how do we do the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, the housekeeping items, exits, and the rest of the anybody virtually with us tonight? Okay, and Jackson, you're very welcome. And meeting minutes from October 26th. Just have a couple of typos that the first page communication will take the bold off of that. And then on page 3, under contracts, that bullet says appendix 13, which the fire contract document will become an appendix, but to be consistent with the rest of the minutes, I'd like to call it document. So we could ask Katrina to do those 2 changes. Does anybody have anything else? What was the first one? Communications is bold. Just hit the bold right there. Hello, Chief.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
It's okay. Thank you for joining us. If anything you can't hear, just let us know and we'll see what we can do. Is Chief Hester?
Will do, thank you.
Okay. All right, on the agenda, oh, I'm sorry. New York State Open Meetings Law, everything that you have in front of you, save one document that is just for information to help satisfy a request from another time, is been posted to the website. Notebooks. I don't think we have a single punch tonight, but hopefully, David said his notebook's getting heavy, so I understand that we have a lot of things. And communications, just to let you know, we had an inquiry about why the assessor's taxable value when the roll closes on July 1st is a different number than quoted on the spreadsheet last time about the assessments for the amended fire district where the rate per thousand was calculated for you. When the roll closes July 1st of every year, there can be changes to it based on court cases, small claims cases, or correction for errors. So if anybody is noticing there's a difference in the assessed value between the town budget and the roll close report of July 1st, that is the reason. Check with the assessor today. Send off an email to the query, and I think, you know, we're okay. What I want you to know is that spreadsheet that lists all the assessments where there's a sheet for the district, a sheet for the fire protection district, and a sheet for the village, and they were stapled together the last time. They're all consistent. Those are all budget figures. That's a true rate per thousand that was levied. So there's a consistency to those pages. The pattern, whatever you think it is right there in front of you, but there's no, there should be no lack of confidence in the numbers. Let me say that, because they're right out of the town budget. That's exactly what people were assessed. It's exactly how the property tax was levied. Any other questions on that, or any questions of anybody's thoughts on that? Okay, I would like to take task 2 out of order because the first paperclip piece that you have there are updates to the financial piece from last week. So if you take a look at the narrative and go to page 2, you'll see the first red bullet. remember from last week, we were still, missing some information to complete another chart. And I wanted to make sure that you have this information. So take a look at that. And then down toward the bottom, it says the capital expense for water districts. When we talked the last time about water district payments, that information is valid. The people who live in the district, property owners, pay all the costs associated with the capital and then the water delivery and the water cost for the district. However, when a district is formed, the town bonds the capital expense. You can't charge people individually from the get-go. So the town creates the bonds, the serial bonds. And every year when the taxes are levied against the water district properties, they reimburse the town for the cost of the principal and the interest on the bond for that year. So the general town taxpayers do not pay for the water districts. However, the town is the clearinghouse to generate the capital associated with getting the water district formed and installed and underway. Is there any question on that? Wanted you to know that because, again, if anybody's looking at bonds that the town carries those bonds as a debt. But understand there's no debt for the town affiliated with fire protection services. So it becomes kind of a moot point for our purposes, but yet financially, it's a valid issue for the committee to look at. Also on the last page, which is page 4 now, we talked the last time about the comptroller for the state issuing an environmental stress score and a fiscal stress score for both the town and the village based on annual reports that both have to submit. Supervisor Moffett reported the town piece in his column a few weeks ago. We looked up and found the village report, and they both are the same. They both have no designation, indicating that there are no fiscal stress issues with either municipality or environmental stress issue with either municipality. The environmental stress scorecard, you'll see more of that because there's a lot of demographic information on there, population, those kinds of things. So I'm going to pull information off of those reports when we get to the natural and the target features and the demographics. But this should be it for the fiscal capacity now portion of chapter 5. The changes in here, if from last time, you remember there was an indebtedness chart and it showed the indebtedness for the town and the village. Remember, the district has no debt. And one of the entries on the village debt was the 2020 dump truck purchase. Brian Anderson, the village administrator, asked me to remove that. That is a leased vehicle and not a serial bond. So it's a different form of a loan. And so I took it out. So when you look at the new sheet, which is your next entry there, you'll see the serial bond payments for the year for the village, 2023 fiscal year are $90,586.75. Town didn't change, that's the library debt. So hang on to this second page and put the other one in front of you, the last page. You put them side by side. We start with the town. down the column titled Town, the current indebtedness is what the town owes after the year 2022 on that bond. So when we look, the town has a maximum indebtedness at 7%, is 53,499,122. The rest of the payment on the library is subtracted from that 7% maximum to show you the town has available. And now these are estimates. These are just our purposes. These are not hard and fast numbers for you to be quoting as, gospel. The 52,433,419. If you go to the second column there titled Village, go back to the indebtedness chart, you'll see that there are 3 serial bonds. The 90,000 is the payment this fiscal year. The 435,625 would be the remaining debt on those 3 bonds until they are satisfied as an obligation. So taking that away from what the village 7% maximum debt can be, the 12,769,049 leaves the village debt available 12,333,424. Fire district has no debt, so their 3% maximum is still available at the bottom in bold and black. Now, again, I'll draw your attention to the bottom of the chart. I updated it yesterday. This is just for our purposes. There's nothing there to say that this is valid for somebody to go out and borrow money, okay? Just want to give you approximate idea of what the value is for indebtedness. Any questions on these 3 sheets?
We have one.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm on the right sheet here.
It's okay, on the back,
The comptroller with the fiscal stress
yes.
and environmental stress. Can you give me what environmental stress could be? What does that mean?
We'll turn to the supervisor because he's more familiar with
Yes,
this one.
so it's basically anything that's out of your control. It's population, it's home values, that type of thing, that is out of your control. The fiscal stress is all to do with the budget and the annual update document that each municipality is supposed to provide to the comptroller's office every year. So that's a 5-year look back as far as, how much money did you bring in, how much money did you spend, that type of analysis, where the environmental one is all about, home values, median household income, population, that type of thing.
Age groups, I think.
Age groups, yes.
Low to moderate, median income, poverty level. I'm trying to think of some of the titles that I've run through there, but that's information that will be in the demographics section of this as well, because it's good information and it's relatively current within the last couple of years. So I think, again, that those are good benchmarking things for you to know when we get to the modeling. Any other questions to this point? All right, well, I thank you for your indulgence. We've done that task 2 now out of the way. And we're going to go up to task 1 on the agenda, and you'll see in red the fire departments, Honey Falls and Mendon. So you have a large paper clip on a packet here. This was also emailed to you. This is what it is. I put them in order based on Honey Falls Fire Department telling me how they wanted to present them to you. Mendon issued 2 pieces, and they are the last pieces on the packet. So if you have questions of Mendon, as Honey Falls gives the report, feel free. Maybe Steve or Mike could address them. If not, hold tight, because they might be addressed when they get to their piece. So with that, Anthony, Chief Tool, you're on, you're up.
All right, everyone, we'll start off. The top sheet, should look familiar. It's the volunteer force designation. It's basically a annualized look at our volunteer staffing from 2009 to up till current, June of 2022. This is all taken off of roster sheets, and I've just kind of gone through and categorized the personnel, shown them in the table, and then they're graphed or shown in the graphs below. So the only real changes that I can point out is we added EMTs to bring ourselves kind of in line with what Mendon was reporting and to utilize that in some of the other data that we were able to project, which we'll look at here in a little bit. And you'll also see a slight difference in about half of the probationary and exterior firefighter value of the versus like 2009 to 2015. Those, when I moved this data over from another sheet, those two tables got corrupted, or those two columns got corrupted. So I just went back through and fixed that. But an overall view of this, right, where we can plainly see that there's a decline in our personnel over the last few years here. Any questions on that?
Just to clarify, Anthony, on the right-hand column, the active total force of 51 at the top in 2009, and currently there are 30 active members.
There are 30 active operational members in the fire department.
Okay, so some people carry more than one designation, right? So the EMTs can also be interior or probationary or.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, basically we break down membership into operational and corporate members, and then operational members are broken down into, are they a probationary member, are they an exterior firefighter, are they fire police, or are they interior qualified firefighters? So there's like 4 classifications in that, and then there would be a sub-classification of EMT qualifications. So you'll see a lot of the EMTs are counted in the other 4 columns.
Are some of those EMTs associated with the ambulance?
I don't believe anybody that we have volunteers.
Saferman, sorry.
Any other questions?
What is probationary?
Probationary basically means we brought them in within the last 12 months from when they were counted. They are put on a 1-year probationary period, which is an evaluation of, are they a fit for the fire department? Are they able to get through our basic skills to be able to provide the service? And after that 12 months, the fire department's administration kind of looks at that individual and says, can we take them off probationary status? Do we leave them on there, or should we have a discussion with them about possibly removing them from operational roles?
Thank you.
Is it, I don't know if it's a fair question to ask, but I'll ask it, is at 30 in 2022, at what number total active force do you think wouldn't be effective?
I will hold off on that answer until some of this data we're gonna look at in a little bit. I think it'll be easier to have that discussion when we're looking at that. If we flip the page, you'll see cumulative recruitment. So basically, if you look at those probationary firefighters in the first column of that last table, that is cumulative adding over 2009 to 2022. We brought in 85 volunteers. I think that kind of speaks volumes when you look back at that 30 number. We have 30 people on the rolls.
And again, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the question might be, so the 55 that are no longer there, what would you attribute that to? Mostly, or?
my personal opinion and from studying and watching the fire department over the last 15 years, a lot of individuals have aged out. We're talking people that were part of the fire department for probably 20, 30 years, and
Right.
at some point you get older
Right.
and you don't function
But
in
wouldn't-
the same
wouldn't the-
capacity.
Wouldn't the probationary firefighters be, typically younger?
Yes, so we've had a lot of luck bringing in 18, 19, 20-year-old individuals. I think you know one who
Right.
just recently voted in.
Yes.
However, we run into a lot of issues with people's aspirations in life or their means to continue to live in the area. We lose a lot of people to college. We lose a lot of people to the difficulty of finding housing in the area
The cost of living. Yeah.
and just different stages of life. So there's a lot more draws away from the fire department than there are to the fire department.
For men, there's 2 times that we take people in, statistic.
Yeah.
It's the high school kid that comes in, they do their time through their high school years. And they're transient during the summer, during college, or start their professional life.
Right.
And then on our side of town, there are no apartments. There is absolutely 0
Mhm.
affordable housing for someone just starting off. So we lose them unless they're still living with mom and dad. And then the second time we get folks is like Mr. Arman, they've retired, they're still looking to give back to the community. So we get that seasoned life experience member.
Right.
Good
Right.
husband.
Right.
So that's, so then, but unfortunately, those folks have done all their physical attributes earlier in life.
Right.
So we get good folks that come in and do extra support and driving, but being an interior firefighter or having the ability to go off and do some of the whiz bang stuff,
Right.
it's just not reality.
Right. So the sweet spot might be the 30 to 50. And people with kids in school and tied to community own a house. So, and I'm sure this is the question throughout the country is, so how do you get those people involved in interest?
How long of a conversation?
Well, I mean, I'm not, I know, maybe it's,
It's the $1 million question.
I mean, right.
I think we have to make it worth their time. We have to give them a draw to the fire department. I'm not a seasoned individual, but I know there was, especially 50, 60 years ago, there was social status attributed with being part of the volunteer fire service.
Right.
There was a station in the community when you were a volunteer firefighter. I think that's eroded greatly, especially within the last probably 10 to 15 years. And now it's just something you do if you kind of want to do it sometimes.
I mean, it's how it was for me. I mean, I was a kid on a fire truck, with my grandfather. My grandfather never drove. We'd go up the top of the road and he would hitch the ride from the guy that drove and I'd get in with him. So, I mean, that's, so that's a generational thing. So, so I get it, but that's why we're here. I'm sorry if I keep interrupting. I'm just trying to figure out.
No problem.
Can I ask just a quick question, because I didn't follow through on this. They were gonna vote for the school taxes to get a tax break. Did they vote on that?
Or no,
They
Well-
voted it down?
I think it's still on the table.
Oh, okay.
They declined to put it in front of themselves for a vote, and they elected to give the volunteers a warm-hearted thanks and promise to establish a advisory committee to try and solicit New York State to
I
better,
know we
Right.
did in the town
Right.
voted to do that.
as did the village.
Other towns do that, right?
Oh, yes.
Many things.
We got a bunch of towns that pass it.
So if we want to move on to this next chart and table, this kind of gets into what you're asking. Skip ahead. Nope, Danny, you're all right. We can talk about that other table first. Go to response times. Keep going right there. Oh, yeah, we can talk about it real quick. So this table right here is a breakdown of our average manpower responses on apparatus by incident series. So incident series is, it's basically a term. It's coined from the National Fire Incident Reporting System, or NEFRS. And basically, it gives you 9 different series to categorize your call types in when you're reporting them after a call. So keep in mind that all of these calls are after the fact. Something may come in as a fire alarm. It is truly a fire. It's not reported as a 700 series false alarm, false call. It's reported as a fire. So as we kind of work through this, right, you'll see starting that left column, that is the cumulative average for that year of all the series together. So we're averaging, just not taking into consideration the call type, 4 people per call in 2015. You look over at the 100 series, those are fires. So this could include a car fire, this could include a chimney fire, a large structure fire. It could include some outdoor fires. And we're averaging 5 members a call for that. Your 300 series is going to be EMS calls, supplementing for the ambulance service, and it's going to be car accidents and some special item rescues, which could include, rescues in the park for water rescue, or in the, some sort of rescue call. Hazardous conditions are hazardous calls that aren't fires. We can think of carbon monoxide incidents. We can think of natural gas incidents, other noxious releases. There's a multitude of calls that are in the next couple series. 500 series is a series that kind of encompasses calls that are, somebody locks themselves out of the house with a stove on, somebody is having a fire in their yard and it's not really authorized. These are maybe non-emergent calls, but they fall to the fire department to handle. And then your 600 series, this is going to be sort of somebody thought something bad was happening. We went, it's a good intent. So somebody had the good intent of calling 911 because they thought there was an emergency. We arrived and found there to be more or less a non-incident at the location. 700 series, take this as alarms. Your smoke alarm went off, your CO alarm went off, anything. And it could be because of a malfunction, it could have worked properly, it could be a malicious pull from a child at the school. That's your 700 series of NEFRS. You move into your 800, and we can think of this as storms, weather-related calls. And that's about it. There's a 900 as well, and those are specialty type incidents. They normally cover things that honestly we don't even record through our fire department. I think, Steve, if you correct me if I'm wrong, fill-ins are, no, those are 5
Service calls.
Yeah, or 531. I don't know. I won't bore you with the details, but especially type weird things you can't really fit into these other series. So if you look through and you keep in mind these calls, right? Each one of them, there are severe calls in each type, right? I messed over, or excuse me, I skipped over the 200 series, things that aren't fires, but maybe a burnt up motor in a HVAC unit on top of a building that filled with smoke, things of this nature, explosions, overpressures of propane tanks, etc. It's 200. So as you work through these columns, through these rows for each year, you can get a feel for how many firemen we're sending to these incidents.
Is that total, or is this counted on apparatus? Is that per apparatus?
So that's whatever manpower responded to the scene, basically. We do miss a few people here and there that responded in their personal vehicles, but I don't believe that is a number that would greatly offset.
So roughly going down, add all the averages up, 4 people.
Yeah. Five for fires.
Yeah, I
Three to-
understand you had threes and
Yeah.
the, the five, and I'm just saying it's roughly 4 people per incident, not
Yeah.
per apparatus. I said counted on apparatuses. So I, 4.
Four.
And
With the apparatus.
Four.
Or with the-
or total,
The call that's going
Yeah,
in
but-
right now, there's 4 people that went to.
okay.
So that's it.
And how do you, like, with your, I mean, you gotta have a minimum to roll a truck, or what do you?
We don't have a minimum set in the fire department right now, because if we did, frankly, there would be calls that, we don't get on the road for.
So do you allow your firefighters to go to the scene, or they have to go to the firehouse?
We have always strongly encouraged firefighters, company officers to respond to the firehouse purely out of the accountability and the safety factor
Yeah.
of
Right.
people arriving in companies and not being lost in the chaos of an incident. It has not always been followed. It has been reinforced as of late, because this is a hard rule.
I came from a department where, volunteers would go in their own.
Mhm.
Go to Accident Expressway would be 10 personal cars lined up there, and it was always chaos. So I'm not trying.
And you see both sides of that.
We had no idea what was going on. The only plus that I could ever see was if you were up the street or something, and it was an EMS call or something, and you could affect
That's the big
something
one. That's the big one.
before you went to, obviously drove here to pick up an piece of equipment to go back to help somebody. That kind of was always.
And to complicate our hard and fast rule, that is part of the conversation, right? It is, if you have to drive through the accident to get to the firehouse,
That doesn't make too much sense.
you should probably stop.
And at least assess.
Yeah.
If you're the only one.
I'm gonna interject something right here. If we go back to the first sheet, and we look at the total active force in 2022, it was 30 people. And we look at the row that were on this page here, 2022 across the series. We're getting 4, 5.5, 6, you go across out of a total of 30. Are we getting interior firefighters? When you get an average for a fire and you've got 5, that's of your total force? Or is this just interior firefighters?
That's total force. So the next sheets we're gonna look at will break this down farther
Okay,
for us.
so bottom line is, you went to the supervisor and said, we don't have enough people.
Yeah.
These sheets together so far are very telling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want everybody to keep this in mind, how we broke that down by series, right? That's just a bare bones way to look at these incidents. If we switch over, and you'll see it's the table and the chart. The first one should be average manpower response to structure fires. Might be the other direction. Yep. Okay, so through some more massaging and regrouping of the data that is in that first table, we started to break out, all right, we can concede that there are calls that our volunteers probably look at the pager and go, I don't know. It's gonna be nothing, right? I'm trying to have dinner. And we started to try and pick out, what do we really need to look at our manpower for? So we took some of the 100 series, included the 200 series into this structure fire response. So you'll have some cumulative data from different series that we think are severe incidents of fire in structures for this table. What you'll see is a couple columns here in the table. You have the total manpower for that year. This runs 2015 to 2022. I think the numbers were a couple months ago. The total manpower for that year, you'll see the average response to these groups of types of calls, right? We're seeing 5 people averaging for 2015. We're seeing 6 in 2022. We had a high of 8 that we were averaging in 17 and 18. So the next column over represents the percentage of the active force, right? We know not every time are we going to get 100% of our volunteers to go to any call. Doesn't matter what it is. Everybody has different draws in their life. It's not feasible. So what's the percentage of our active force that we're capturing for these calls? And you see that varies, right? Sometimes as high as 26%, as low as 12%. Then to answer this question of, all right, do we know what kind of volunteer we're getting for this call? We thought it prudent to estimate what we're getting for a structure fire by estimating the interior firefighters that showed up. So the way we did this was we looked at the total manpower number for that year. We took the number of interior firefighters, found the percentage that represented of the total force, and we applied that percentage to the average response number. So if I don't have the percentage in there, but if we'd say we were 54% of our membership was interior firefighters in 2015, we are now assuming that we got 54% of the average response as interior firefighters. So we have the number 3. Again, it's an estimated number. It's not exact, but it's meant to give everybody a picture of, what can we safely assume we're going to have for interior firefighters that year. If you look at the next column over, you'll see basically the number of personnel, interior firefighters, that we are requesting mutual aid or mutual assistance. While we do not require a number for our trucks to roll out the door, the county mutual aid, mutual assistance program, mutual aid anyway, does say that you will not leave to go to a mutual aid call without 4 interior qualified firefighters. That can be changed for mutual assistance, standing agreements. There's departments that'll say, send me 3. Mendon and Honey Falls are in mutual assistance agreements now that basically, please get me a truck because I don't know when my next truck's getting on the road. And sometimes we need more than 1 truck at some of these calls. And then what that number is based off of, what it's assumed off of, is an NFPA recommendation of 17 firefighters on scene within a certain amount of time. It varies greatly for volunteer fire departments. 17 firefighters to fill the critical incident priorities of a house fire. And I can tell you that it's a house fire. That's less than 2,000 square feet. House fire, they represent it as a low hazard fire. If you take into consideration a garden style apartment, a multifamily, that number climbs to 28. So this is just a house fire. This is not 700 Pine Trail. This is not Pinehurst. This is one house involved. Any questions? And that number is represented in the gray dotted line on the chart, so you can kind of visualize: are we hitting that with our own manpower? No, we're not. Thus, the mutual aid, mutual assistance.
And you've done that on these successive sheets for the different types of calls.
Correct.
So the same
Yep. So you'll see.
application, just different call.
You'll see EMS incidences. You'll see motor vehicle accidents, right? So how we spoke earlier, EMS incidents and motor vehicle accidents are both contained within this 300 series. So for these, we separated them out into finer categories because we don't necessarily need as many people at an EMS incident as we do at a motor vehicle accident. All of these are based off of fire department pre-planned critical incident priorities and critical incident tasks that need to be accomplished and how many people you need to do that with in a short amount of time. And the last one is alarms. So this encompasses 600 and 700 series. These are again kind of your, it's a fire alarm. It came in and it ended up being burnt food on the stove, or it ended up being a non-incident somewhere. So they called in a header in the sky, and you know, the town's on fire, and somebody was just having a really good hot dog roast in their backyard.
How do they determine, like, I'm looking at this structure fire one.
Yep.
And so you're saying like in 2022, you'd have 6 people, 4 would be interior firefighters. Ideally, you'd have 16 people there. How do you determine how many different fire departments to call out to get
So-
to that 16? I mean,
So
how's that-
we're requesting 16 more personnel.
I got you.
So because we've said our numbers are dropping, right, we raised it in 2022. And we know that mutual aid right now, we don't really have, with the exception of Mendon, we don't have an understanding with any other fire department of just sending what you have as quickly as you can. When they get a mutual assistance, an automatic mutual aid call for a structure fire to our area, they are under the impression that they should send 4 interior firefighters. So if we need 12 more interior firefighters from our surrounding neighbors, we can assume we need to call 3 different fire departments.
And then those individuals most likely are gonna have to drive to the firehouse, get on the fire truck and get from wherever they are.
Generally, Rush, Mendon, Henrietta,
So it could take them 20, 30 minutes at least.
could very easily.
Anthony, do you determine the fire departments that respond, or is
It is the chief and the chief's office that regularly will update mutual aid requests depending on the status of surrounding neighbors. I know up until recently, it was all volunteer fire departments that were mutual aid to us. And we've started calling on Henrietta more because they're a guaranteed resource. They have people in-house. It cuts down on that response time. And we know exactly what we're getting every time they call. Any other questions? The effective manpower response columns and the other tables and graphs, those are based off of assumptions and conversations that the chief's office has had, stating we need this many people to very effectively descend upon a scene and make sure that we're going to be able to provide for the best outcome. So that's kind of the goal. NFPA is National Fire Protection Association. They are an organization that is comprised of hundreds of committees. And these people come from industry, they come from fire department backgrounds, EMS backgrounds, and they basically write a book for what we're, so they write recommendations for everything under the sun, but for what we're concerned with, they write fire department industry guidelines of best practices and goals of how you should organize and run your fire departments. So this is kind of when you're looking for a way to evaluate yourself, along with ISO, NFPA is another tool in the toolbox to say, am I on the same page as the rest of the nation?
On the last page with the automatic alarms,
Yes,
we have some understanding is then that if there is an automatic alarm that continues to trigger, that the village, I think, would take some action. Do you know if there's something that's happening still,
Yes.
or is it all on the inside?
There's actually one currently happening now with an address in the village.
And you'll see that, it's also kind of shown in the last two columns. You'll see false alarms and malfunctions. There are 700 series that we will report the system operated due to malfunction, not normal operation. So that you can see that on a year-to-year breakdown, right? 2022, we had so far when we recorded this 9, there was 28 in 2018. So it varies. I would say the village is responsive to our request for this. Obviously, there's a dance to be had with the end user, which is the business, and how much you can kind of lean on people and still expect to have business and enterprise in the village.
Require permit for one. Town also.
Does town have a local law for false alarms?
Yes.
Through fire marshals, but it's
Yeah, just that's, yeah.
it rarely applies. I believe the towns is still like 3 alarms within 24 or 48 hours. So when it goes off once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 3 false alarms in 6 months.
Not for the fire side.
Oh, okay.
The village code is on the internet, on the website, so we can look that up as well as the local, put them in.
Does anybody have any more questions? This is kind of the meat and potatoes of our staffing, right? The historical trend and these average manpower responses really paints the picture of what we are able to provide as far as our staffing, our volunteer staffing to these calls. If there's no other questions, we'll move to the next one, which is average response times. So you'll see 3 separate tables here. The far left one is a complete breakdown, complete average of all of our response times, including the village, in the fire protection district, and mutual aid areas from, the dates in there somewhere. It was basically 2021 up until a few weeks ago. And that will get updated at the end of the year. This shows you the average en route time. So how long it takes to get en route and how long it takes cumulatively to get on scene from time of dispatch. And that is broken down further by apparatus type. And the reason that is done is if you look at what apparatus we send to some calls, right? 566 is our squad vehicle. It's a pickup truck. It responds generally to EMS calls. It responds with, as we saw in that last chart or that last table with the average manpower response, it usually responds with 1 or 2 people on it, 3 people maybe. It's 562. That's our primary suppression engine. It responds to a lot of the fire alarms. It responds to fires, burst out. 563 handles most of the MVAs, rescues, things of that nature. 560 is the ladder truck. This is a supplemental piece of apparatus that rolls second in the village and in the town for a lot of fires if there's not a known need for another engine for water supply. And then 567 is our UTV. It responds generally to wooded areas, mostly Meadowponds Park. And then you'll see 5C16 and the abbreviation PVs. These capture the chief's vehicles. So the fire chief has a command vehicle that's supplied by the fire department corporation for his use in response to alarms. And then both of the assistant chiefs are given light packages in most cases to outfit their personal vehicles. And the reason we want to break these out is these individuals, they don't need to go to the firehouse. They're responding directly from home. So you'll see a significant difference in their en route times.
And these are minutes, right?
Minutes.
Okay.
Yes,
The average response time with your left-hand column, would that include each of the, for the village and town?
yes. Yeah, so the average response time on the left includes all of our calls from that period, no matter where we were going. We could have been going to, where's the farthest place we got?
Canisius.
Canisius? Yep. We could have been going to Canisius. All right, but we're sending one truck, so if we did go to Canisius, it's probably 562.
So the average en route time between the village and fire protection, why would there be a discrepancy between the en route would be that
Mhm.
vehicle leaving the firehouse? So, go ahead.
So you will see a slight difference. I don't think any of it, so if I see 16, right, it's a 2-second difference. That is, it's just basically because of those calls. There's no single time, so the more calls that you add to this, the closer those numbers you probably get. But because we're working with such a small data pool, because it's only
Right.
about a year, there's gonna be some
I
fluctuations.
just, 566 isn't just utility vehicle,
Yep.
is it? I'm just looking at 2-minute difference.
So that will also pull the 567 apparatus.
The trailer with the UTV on it.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can see there are some differences. Is it confusing to break it down this way? or
no,
is
I'm
it-
just saying is the en route time, a 2-minute difference, let's say 566, if the call was in the two different
Mhm.
areas, it seems to me like that would almost be, the average would be almost the same. I don't know why it would be a two-minute difference.
I think it's just because of the data we have to work with. Because sometimes in the village, it's 8 minutes to get it on the road, sometimes it's 4 minutes. Sometimes in the town, it's 4 minutes, sometimes it's 8 minutes. And given the number of times that fluctuates, is going to affect that average. I think maybe in these charts, the biggest thing to look at is the
Not
on-scene
seen
time.
time, right?
What does the on-scene time mean?
The
That's
on,
all you're there for?
no,
No,
that
no,
means,
okay.
that is when the apparatus goes on scene. So it,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
From the time of
from the
dispatch.
time of dispatch. It takes
Okay.
that long to get the apparatus to the incident.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and
Oftentimes, when 566 goes into the fire protection district, it's pulling the trailer. So that takes some time to hook up. So that may
That is
account
okay.
for
Yeah.
some additional time just
Okay.
as far as en route time.
Which is what's first out?
562.
62?
That's probably our primary firefighting
Is
apparatus.
it?
Unless it's a special request, 560 is still time.
And you'll see the NA for 567 in the village response area. There was 2 calls that apparatus was utilized or was dispatched in the village. I think both times it didn't get to the call, so I don't have on-scene times for that. Or on-scene times just weren't recorded because whoever was in the vehicle didn't call dispatch or dispatch didn't call that. All these times are pulled directly from the CAD system downtown. We were able to pull them in a roundabout way out of what's sent to us into Red Alert, into a spreadsheet, and then tabularize that and come up with these averages.
Going back to like NFPA or ISO, the average on scene or response in one, do you know what that they would recommend?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. And then I believe it is a number and a percentage of the time.
Also, it's through population density.
Right.
So the village is gonna have a set of parameters, and then the fire protection district will have a set of parameters, and the fire district will have a set of parameters. The district and the fire protection district probably similar. I would assume the population density is pretty similar,
Yeah.
but the village is gonna be the,
I know.
I guess what I meant is if NFPA set the average for the village for that 562, the average on scene is 7 minutes. And then I'm looking at that and I'm saying, the only way you can trim that down is you can't drive any faster, so it's getting to the route is from
Yep.
dispatch, right? So I'm just saying that if, and if Andy said, that really should be 4 minutes to on scene,
Yeah.
then I'm just trying to,
Yeah, unless you're gonna park 4 fire trucks and firefighters driveways. I mean,
that's what I mean. I mean, that's the only way you can lessen that is to get people.
Yeah.
Listen,
Or have them stay at the fire hall.
And that, I mean, that time difference can be appreciated again by looking at 5C16 and the PBs. Right, you see those en route times are generally 2.5 minutes. Whereas, the other apparatus, we're adding another 3, 4, 5 minutes to get the firefighters. They get the alarm, they get into their vehicle, they drive to the firehouse, they get in the firehouse, they get their gear on, they get on the truck, and then the truck goes en route. So that's what's happening in those extra minutes.
Ethan, just to clarify, fire protection district is just amended fire protection district.
Correct.
You didn't do anything for us.
I did not. Yeah,
No, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't lumped all together.
We might go out there 5 times a year. Next one.
Well, the reaches of Mendon Fire Protection District are kind of indicated by the times
Yeah.
versus what you're looking for West Bloomfield. So I just wanted to make sure this is wholly Mendon Fire
Yeah.
Protection.
I broke this out as far as I could for our purposes, and if we need to condense some of it, we can do that, whatever we want to do. Again, I want to update these come January 1, so that we can capture pretty much 2 full years of data. Otherwise, and with that, I hope to see some of those times get a little closer together, or would expect to see them anyway.
Kim Smith, to answer your question, it's NFPA 1720. 15 interior firefighters in 9 minutes or less, 90% of the time, road is urban, which is 1,000, a population of 1,000 per square mile. For reference, the village is 1070.
Yeah, we
So-
fall into an urban category
Mhm.
in the village.
So 15 people, 9 minutes, 90% of the time for the village.
And I think you have to add one for an aerial device as well. For when you talk about manpower.
That could be correct. This is just the chart from 1720.
Okay, so 9 people, I'm sorry,
15
15
folks,
people
15 folks. in
within 9 minutes on scene. And
That's qualified, so that's 9 or 15 interior.
50, so that's the point I'm trying to make is
We're not even
you're
close.
not even
9
close. I'm not saying it's a negative, as
No,
much as
no,
I'm just
no,
trying to clarify
It's-
where it falls
That's the,
compared to where industry standard.
that's the basis of why this whole thing is.
Right, that's all, I'm just trying to, so we can get our ducks. in a row.
Then
Okay,
for
thank you.
reference, if you go to rural, which is the 0 to 500, which is where the town falls in, it's 236.3. You have to have 6 interior folks, 14 minutes, 80% of the time. That's drastically different.
Right.
But then.
But
if you
still not-
apply- If you apply the other NFPA standards for structure firefighting, then it's
Yeah.
like every good legal document, it contradicts.
Yes. Thank you. Good, thank you.
Here to help.
Anything more on the average response times? All right, we'll move to mutual aid, mutual assistance summary. This should look familiar. It's updated after a deep dive into our data reporting. There was a lot of underreported or incorrectly unfinished reports for mutual aid. So going through, I was able to finish those off, more accurately capture our mutual aid, mutual assistance numbers for these years of 2015 to 2022 up till the 7th there you'll see. So this, again, this, you've seen this, and just to give it a brief recap, you're looking at how many times in the table mutual aid was received, automatic mutual assistance was received, and then how many times we gave mutual aid and mutual assistance to our neighbors. Keep in mind again that the mutual aid and mutual assistance that is given is generally counted. We send one truck, right? So that's one unit, whereas the received is compiled by total units. So, and I used the case before for 700 Pine Trail, there was 7 fire departments that responded. So we received 7 units of mutual assistance, automatic aid or mutual aid. So you'll see a higher number, actually the number of incidents that we called for. So it's a little bit confusing, but I think it accurately reflects the amount of times a year that we need help or giving help.
So in 2022, so far, you've given aid 50 times. Is that?
Yep.
So you've had 50 calls.
Yep.
For mutual.
Usually outside of our.
Aid or
Mutual aid and
assistance?
mutual assistance,
Okay, either both.
both.
So 50 times so far this year, 11 months, you've taken first out with all 4 people per run.
Yep.
And given it to somebody else who has the same problem.
Yep. And the next thing we'll look at will show that the vast increase is within the town.
I'm sorry.
The increase is represented by the Mendon Fire District and North Falls Fire Department.
Oh,
working
so,
together.
so most of that 50 was between these 2 agencies.
Unless you wanna, I mean,
Well,
we're
take a
certainly going,
You don't get from David how many times you went back and forth.
we're certainly going to other departments more,
Mhm.
but when you see the drastic increase, I believe it's fair to say that's within the town.
Since the first of the year, this year, shortly thereafter, we started the automatic mutual assistance going to each other's car accidents with the police. And so that there's an increase right there.
Mhm.
We've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of times we're going to fill in Henrietta.
8
Henrietta?
compared to 0 probably 3 years ago.
Really?
Well,
Why are they pulling from, why
it's-
from Honey Falls?
It's
instead
mutual,
of
right?
Right in the city,
Usually at the same.
I'm sorry?
They're usually at the same.
So you're,
So they're depleting their force as well for a fire. They have their mutual assistance that they're calling in, generally Brighton, the city, Gates in some areas. And then they're asking their mutual aid volunteer partners to come and staff their district while they're tied up on a significant incident. Because again, it's mutual, right? So we
No,
expect them to come to us.
exactly, but then, so when you go to Henrietta, just as an example, again, you take the active people that are in the village.
Yep.
Honey Falls Fire Department, are you back filling with another,
Stand by.
are you calling, I don't know, Bloomfield, I don't know, Ionia, I don't know, what's next.
It's what I would call an extremely gray area of how long are we gonna be out?
Right,
Is like, one of the first things I always do is call the firehouse and see who's still there. You know, 3 more guys show up and they're gonna be in town.
and hang there
Right,
with the.
yeah. Yes, I mean, usually all 3 chiefs don't go, 1 chief will go, the other 2 guys might be back. So it's a very gray area.
And we could backfill, it's kind of like hitting the brakes on the expressway and watching from miles away.
No, I know.
You're gonna see that go how far?
Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
when Sparta's filling
Yeah.
in,
Pretty
probably
nice
slow
fire,
down. yeah.
You've heard of it, like driving.
Sort of the dance.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
just came to mind. I don't know.
So I'm taking it that the reason you're seeing this uptick in numbers is because the other agencies are having the exact same problem.
Okay.
They don't have enough people.
The volunteer agencies around us are having the same issues and
So you're calling on them, they're calling on you. Sure.
everybody's trying to do more with less.
But it's the pay. I mean, that's what I'm hearing loud and clear is that if the paid are busy and they need more help, then yeah, we're all in trouble.
And you have to staff for the risk that's in your area. It's people very often, they look at, okay, well, Honey Falls only runs 300 calls a year. They don't need the same fire department as Henrietta does. And it's correct, you don't need the same, but there is a level of risk that exists everywhere, and especially in some areas. So again, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about staffing, whether it's volunteer career, whatever the solution is, we have to guarantee something. Okay. So then if we switch over, you will see. Okay. If we switch to the next page, this will be Town of Mendon Mutual Aid Mutual Assistance. Yep, that one right there. This was really a supervisor's request. This is showing from 2015 to 2022, the shared, as reported by the Honey Falls Fire Department. I'm not saying that these numbers are 100% true, because there was certainly some reporting issues. But we are verifying that, and I'm pretty confident in these numbers right here that these are going to be final numbers for at least up through 21. This is how many times we gave mutual aid or automatic mutual assistance, so standing mutual assistance agreement response to the Mendon Fire District, or we received that from them. And you'll just see an increase there from 2015 up through 2022, and it's 11.7. So we got another month, and I know we went there 3 times in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So that number will increase. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Any questions on that? The next thing, this is a very quick table. This is just a breakdown of our current active roster, rather current, and their certification levels. In that top row, you'll see, right, we'll start with the ID number. We don't want to use anybody's name. Their designation, their operational designation, exterior firefighter, interior firefighter, line officers, which are lieutenants and captains. These are the individuals that are in charge of companies, so fire trucks and the personnel that respond on them. And then chief officers, which are help to kind of expand the command system into multiple companies, larger incidents, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see a couple probationary firefighters, which we recently brought in as well. So firefighter 1 is New York State's very strong recommendation of the bare minimum requirement to become an interior qualified firefighter. And I would argue that it's probably been upheld in a couple of legal cases, as it's not a suggestion, it's the certification level. And that is up to 112 hours, 16 hours of training.
You
Something.
said quoted 120.
Yeah.
It's a significant time commitment. They put a condensed class together on in the summer. That's just 2 straight weeks, so Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. Quick boot camp if you have an 18, 19-year-old. They discontinued that. Okay,
What?
so they're not doing that.
What's the one they put together with another one to come up with 120?
Yes, it's BFO, the basic, and then IFO combined. They do it straight through.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone's not doing what I asked it to do. It's funny again.
So they basically rolled, they do have an exterior firefighting certification that New York State recommends. And that's that BFO, the Basic Exterior Firefighter Operations, and IFO, Interior Firefighter Operations. They've combined both of these because to be an interior firefighter, you need to learn how to be an exterior firefighter and then learn, how to use the SCBA, interior hose line operations, et cetera, et cetera. Firefighter 2 expands upon this knowledge. It gets into some more specialized types of calls, flammable liquid fire, flammable and combustible liquids. Fires, EVOC is emergency vehicle operations. So if you want to drive a fire truck, you don't need a CDL, but you do need to take EVOC. All right,
Don't think this thing
not as a volunteer. We'd have one,
Don't have to be inspected either.
two, we'd have two. Our chief, come get the fire truck. Still have CDL.
$128.
To drive the truck. You gotta
That's,
know.
It is
Where's that?
24 hours, I believe you talked it is now.
66.
Yeah, I know in 2009, when I took firefighter 1, it was 97 hours.
EVOC is 18, then pump ops is another 24 on top of that.
Yep.
Then aerial is another 20.
So pump ops, once you are cleared to respond or to drive a vehicle with the red lights and sirens and, cut through traffic, then we move on to, okay, there's different types of apparatus, right? The squad, our 566 piece of apparatus, this doesn't have a pump on it. We can get somebody cleared to drive that, to tow the trailer without really any supplemental training other than just some in-house, hey, this is the trailer, this is the UTV, this is how you use it. Somebody that's going to be, for lack of a better phrase, having the lives of a couple firefighters in their hands at the end of the pump needs to go to pump ops, learn how to basically comprehend what's going on behind the shiny metal panel and the gauges, and learn pump pressures, friction loss, some basic, very basic math. Same thing with aerial ops. The individual we're trusting to move a 105-foot ladder around at the end of a truck and not hit anything hard with it. They need to go to some training as well. Electric wire again. Accident vehicle extrication training. This is this class has been named different things through New York State since they came out with the Jaws of Life. It used to just be a Jaws of Life certification. You really learn how to stabilize, cut vehicles, get people out of disentangled from car accidents in this class and do it safely. Rescue Tech Basic is a class which gets you basic knowledge of rope systems, mechanical advantages. And we utilize this in the park on occasion or during some specialized rescues where, maybe we got 3 guys, but if we put a 4-to-1 system and a rope, we can pull 4 times as much weight. That's just really dumbing it down. Surface water rescue, think of this as somebody drowning in a creek. Ice water rescue, think of this as somebody drowning while ice fishing in ponds. And hazardous materials operations is a extremely basic operations, dip your toes into hazardous materials response. Basically enough to say, yes, we have a problem. This is the resources I need to get going.
Do you have an MTO?
No.
So all this is farmed out, all this training?
All of that training right there is generally done through Monroe County or New York State. We do have a assistant chief that is generally in charge of training, but they are delivering in-house training. So think of this as certification and training, and what we're doing in-house as drilling to keep those skills fresh, to expand upon those skills. Anything more? And the last one, this is a cheery piece of information that I'd like to leave you with. This is our historical roster. It goes back to individuals we brought in and are still active from 1977. up until a few months ago, some individuals we brought in. Again, names are not included. We do have ID numbers. You'll see the date that they joined. If they resigned, you will see that date as well as their years of operational service. I use operational loosely because some of that also, I'll dive into that in a second. If you see any of the rows in green, those people are still active in the fire department. So as the days tick on, those years of operational service will increase. If you turn to the last page in your packet here, you'll see a breakdown of the average of retention that we are having. You'll see an average over the last 20 years of 5.75 years. We are able to keep an individual in. If they retired, really, that's counting the people that have left. It excludes the people that we still have on the rolls. So when they left, on average, we had people over this whole time span, we kept people for 6.6 years, so 6.5 years. If you jump down to the bottom, I think the part that I'm really trying to illustrate in this is over the last 5 years, we have averaged 2 years of retention. And if we look generally, or just an overview of the people that have left us, they have left in less than a year and a half. So back up to that certification list, back up to the manpower that we showed going to these calls, and then consider all of that with the ability to retain for more or less than 5 years. In some, many cases, less than 2.
In 2 years, you can't get the training.
And this, I don't mean to pontificate or get off topic, but it poses serious concerns when you get into discussions about who will be the chief of the fire department in 10 years.
Or knowledge of. Knowledge.
These people that are highlighted in green.
Yeah.
Are they qualified to do, to go to a fire and put out a fire,
If you would,
so to speak? I'm probably oversimplifying.
if you wanted to compare their ID numbers, their badge number to the ID number on the certification level chart, you could answer the question. I can't tell you everybody is. I don't. Right, we had 22 people on the rolls last year that were interior qualified.
As an example, I'm failing with the fourth person. We lost 4 firefighters this year, 4 firefighters have left. I can't think of the fourth person, but it doesn't matter. 3 out of those 4 left solely because they could not find a place to live in this town. 2 were apartments and 1 was a house. Just food for thought. I don't know why the fourth person escapes me, but just food for thought.
But that might be a longer term fix.
Yeah, I don't have it.
I mean, housing, I mean,
I mean, we could get into a conversation about incentives and beer if the sun comes up, but if there's no place to live, you move
Were
on.
they singles?
Some of them had significant others that also helped pull them from the area.
I'm just thinking we have bedrooms. Ambulance. Ambulance space was built with bedrooms upstairs. I don't know what value is there now or if that could be helpful in any circumstance, but
So, something.
okay. I know we're way over time. That doesn't mean you have to go.
Sorry.
If you want to fit.
Anthony, you did a nice job.
Yeah.
Big head you're doing.
Any,
This has gone forever, but.
any questions of Anthony before we look to see?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. It represents an inordinate amount of time to do all of this
He's got it.
on both departments, so appreciate that. Steve, before you start, I would just say to you, the last 2 pages that are stapled together, it's from the Monroe County Communication Rules and Regulations written in 2010. The revision is in the works. It has not been approved. What I wanted to show you here, someone asked about the numbering of equipment, you know, what is 562? The first number is the battalion number. These are the departments in the county broken out to battalions. The second number is the department's number in the battalion, so where the village has 5-6, look down under battalion 5. You'll see Honeymoon Falls 5th Battalion, so the first number is 5, the second number 6 is, Honeymoon Falls is the 6th number department in the 5th Battalion. And then the second page indicates to you near the top what the last number is, 2562, it's a pumper. 563 is a pumper. 560 is the ladder, Quint. So that's the numbering system. So when you're looking at a piece of equipment, either Mendon or Honeymoon Falls, you have an understanding of why it is. The chiefs are always 1C. And then the last number is their department number in the battalion. And then the chief is 1. 5C 16 is 5th Battalion Chief 1. In the 6th Company, that's Corey. The assistant chiefs and so on down the line, you'll see they have a different number before the department number, so 3636. And I think it goes the same that way in Mendon. Okay, so that's just a little background. As soon as the update is approved by the Fire Advisory Board, we'll get that to you, but I thought this might be helpful to you. Steve?
All right, MFD cumulative. All right, so the top table, don't need to explain the top table again. It's the exact same explanation, just different data points. It's the Mendon data points. I will say this, it does paint a relatively rosy picture because it doesn't talk about qualifications of the individuals. It's just raw data of folks that chose to respond. So that's that top table. The bottom table, I'm sorry, for some reason, as an email, it cut off the chart piece, but if you look at the average manpower response to structure fires, obviously you'll see a significant decrease over the years. Of the interior personnel using the same statistical analysis that Anthony already explained on the Honeymoon Falls side. As you'll see, I left the 10th place decimal point in there is 1.8. Obviously, there's no such thing as a 0.8 for firefighter. So right now, during 2022, the Mendon Fire District statistically is deploying a interior firefighter at a structure.
You said A.
1.
Statistically. Obviously, raw data for and actual responses may be different, but this is just a statistical analysis of the department on paper. As you continue down to the next one, EMS, you'll see one of the things that was interesting to me, it's almost like a weird convergence point. As our overall staffing level goes down, our EMT level has stayed the same. So statistically, it skews the numbers to make it look like more EMTs are responding because it's the same 13 EMTs that have been there since Christ was a corporal, and they're still providing service to the town. So that's where it's kind of a weird convergence point of, as the numbers are going down, the EMTs are staying the same. So it's just kind of an interesting, where you can see the statistics, obviously on the structure fire pointing very negative light. On the EMS side of it, pointing differently, but unfortunately, again, going back to actual responses, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we're north of 10 completely unanswered calls in the overnight hours for EMS, which is why you'll see the note FFD 20-08. Currently, there's a mutual assistance agreement between the Mendon Fire District and the Fishers Fire District for overnight EMS coverage. So Fishers is automatically dispatched through the mutual aid system from 8 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning to all of our EMS calls in the Mendon Fire District.
Whether you respond or not.
So they're both started, and then it's up to the responding Mendon senior member that goes. They see an appropriate manpower response, they can turn them off. If they're like, hey, we need help, and then they keep going.
Is that same time frame an automatic response by Honeymoon Falls?
So no, so that's just the overnight EMS was specifically because Station 1 is so close.
Yeah.
Fisher Station 1 is so close to the Mendon border. That's where the chief chose to go that direction versus someone coming out of the village. It's basically just going to be chasing the ambulance across town.
Okay.
So that's where the intention was have the resources on a little bit closer to the border. Ambulance is coming out of the village. So hopefully there's a convergence in between somewhere of only a couple minutes of difference where the fire truck gets there a little bit before. Or the unfortunate event that maybe Honey Falls ambulance is already out on a job. This is getting some sort of resource there. And it's somewhat timely manner.
So this convergence of we go mutual aid with one another on all calls doesn't happen.
So not for EMS at this time. I'm not privy to any conversations the chiefs are having, but at this point in time, it's the structure fires, calls in the park of like search and rescue types and MDAs and anything specialty rescue.
With injuries and beyond.
Yeah.
But not for like deer struck accidents.
So that's a town-wide 24/7, 365. So that's where if you look at Anthony's data from the Honey Falls side, there's that 23 last year and now it's already 40 this year. That's 100% of that right there.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, you'll see the data. If you want to deep dive in it, if you have questions, feel free to shoot the Muffy an email and she'll send it out to the rest of us and we can answer it in between if somebody wants to deep dive into the data points. To not belabor the fact. The numbers are the numbers. It's not painting a muscle picture.
Do you still have your date? Man, I don't know what you.
The district administrator,
Is it?
so for the district administrator to respond on calls, he is considered a mutual aid member. So he uses the certifications and training of his home department, which is another Monroe County agency. And then he's able to respond as a mutual aid member during those calls.
He's there Monday through Friday or?
So his typical hours are Monday to Friday, currently 8 to 3:30, 8 to 4-ish. Kind of ebbs and flows depending on some family commitments that he's got going on, so.
And he's, interior fire.
Negative.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, yes, with him being a mutual aid member, no, he is not. But Pete, can you correct me? He is not on the interior side for mutual aid, is that correct?
He is interior.
There you go. I know it's gone back and forth a couple of
So
times,
he's
so.
interior. I guess my point is, so 1/3 of the day, your one person responding could be the person who's
Also the driver.
there. Am I, my.
Yep.
Right,
Your assessment is correct.
Ours is not.
you still have,
Is an operator and an EMT.
Years gone by, the district administrator was not a mutual aid member, and that's where my brain was all over the place. And it was the same predicament. So civil service that kept them as a driver EMT only, because they're not a civil service firefighter.
right, they're not civil service, so they're therefore not competitive and money. In Honey Falls, so he's. It is not interior.
Nope.
Or because he can't be, or.
Correct. Just because we didn't go the extra step that they did.
It's, no, I don't mean because he can't, I meant like physically, I mean.
Oh,
you know,
no, he's an interior firefighter in his home department also.
Okay.
So maybe to elaborate on that, I fill in for him.
Mhm.
There are days when I am Anthony Militello, 197 badge number. And there's days that I'm Anthony Militello, CS 006. I'm not an interior firefighter. I could show up to a burning building. I'm basically not authorized to enter that building as an interior firefighter because that is not my job description and legally you won't open up a can of worms.
So that's the 10,000 foot view again. If you feel bored one evening and you want to deep dive into it, please review it at your own leisure. To not belabor the fact that it's a similar trajectory of a downhill slope. But that's the data for that stuff. The only other updates we have from the men's side, it's a very quick one. If you go to the elite. Yeah, the big one. As we were discussing some stuff, we wanted the previous unit sale, so that's just the updates. Again, you can see the previous unit sale of the unit before it, but just to highlight the one that's very on top. The current engine 364 cost the Minot Fire District $463,201. The previous unit 364 that was sold, and that money is used to help offset costs, was only $72,000.
Sale price.
Do you know how old that truck was when you sold it?
97, we sold it in 17, I think so.
20 years.
Okay.
You're lucky you got.
Yeah, it's not bad, really.
On a district average, I did it on the retired side, district average is roughly like 38% return on investment. That's what you get, but that's using raw numbers, not the inflation factor. Using historical money's worth versus today's money's worth. I didn't add that factor in. That's just straight numbers.
Yeah, just true sales
Straight
price
numbers. Yeah.
applied against the next purchase.
Yeah.
We talked about that for Huntington Falls as well. Were you able to get information on this for previous vehicle?
Yeah, didn't they go in?
I don't think we updated that sheet.
I mean, I didn't ever receive an update on it, so.
You have one to have?
Okay,
Yeah, we do have some numbers. I believe it's, I believe it is.
okay. So when you have that update, just pass it along and we'll, you know, then we're at apples and apples. However, the village money goes to the general revenue. It's not like the fire district where they can put it for this vehicle. The village is a general revenue. So, you know, it's not applied to the purchase of the next truck, like the district needs to do.
The only thing you'll see that's a little bit different is if you go down about halfway, you'll see 3618 and 3C16, both have NAs for previous unit sales. 3618 is our four-wheeler, is a true ATV style, it's a smaller footprint. There was no unit prior to it, so there is no offsetting sale. It was a different direction. Instead of buying a larger scale brush truck, we decided to go a little bit smaller footprint, a little less use, hopefully a little bit longer use type deal, a little less miles on it. And then for the 3C16 vehicle, that's a Ford F-150. Men Fire District, just like Huntington Falls Fire Department, historically had a chief's car. We were trying to increase that fleet to give more tools to the responding chief officers. Unlike a career department where you're guaranteed that the duty officer is responding in their duty officer vehicle, our volunteers have lives outside of the volunteer life, so we can't guarantee that every chief's going to show up to every call. So we're trying to outfit more chief officers with those tools to run a command post. So that's where you see it ending in front of that, because we added a additional fleet car, if you would.
Any questions for Steve? Well, I thank you all for the work that you're doing here.
Thank you, Steve.
Before we adjourn, does anybody have an interest in any other kind of data from the fire department? There's something that you think is missing or something you want to know more than what we have? That we're gonna work with what we have over the course of the next 3 weeks till our next meeting. I'm going to start now drafting the chapters of what we've covered so that you have narrative explanation in a cursory format to go with the data. And I may come back to the fire departments and ask you to pull it in a different size page or a different format so that we can gain additional consistency and show, you know, a confidence for what you really want in the report. So look for things to come out across the 3 weeks, not just lasting at the end like we've been doing. Take a look at the narratives, take a look at the figures that are proposed to go in, and, you know, come prepared the next time to try to capture everything that we need to do to get this report going, because after November, we're going to start looking at modeling. And I would just say to you, this first page on the battalions, you'll see that in my handwriting here, Laurelton and Ridge Culver have gone together in one department now known as the Arundecoit Fire Department, and their new number is 7. So there's some changes across the years that are significant for the structure of the fire service within Monroe County. Scottsville is now a joint district, Village of Scottsville and the Fire Protection District out in the town of Wheatland. And there's other things that are going on in the fire service. And you will be apprised of those changes within Monroe County so that you can get an idea of what's happening around us. because we sit on the border of Livingston and Ontario counties, I'm also going to give you that information for those agencies that you can typically deal with in mutual aid. So like East Avon is now a fire district. Victor has a fire district. Their village department is now a fire district. So there's some things that are happening around us. And when we get to the modeling, there will be a checklist for you to follow to see what happens with finances in these different kinds of models. What happens where you get into moving personnel together, like you're doing now between Mendon and Honey River Falls. It's happening all around us. So you'll have some tools to work with, but the idea is if you want to get a different model than we have now, what are the benefits to it? What are the trade-offs? So all of the information that we have in the data will feed into this bigger picture. And again, I thank you all for what you've done and all of you for your patience and commitment to see this project to the end. So we are way over time, but thank you all. See you November 30th. Whoa, okay. Happy holiday.
It'll be one. That would be 75.
Yeah.
Right, right.